Welcome to Football Podcast with Brandon White.
And an unsure Brandon White's assistant, Robert Thackrey.
This is the problem with being the producer and a cast member, because I was looking at it like, what the fuck did I do? But everything's fine.
Or it's not, whatever. This week, if you're not catching the pattern of what we're doing here, this week is NFC South. 2 seed is what determined, or the 2 seed in the NFC is what determined what division we're doing. So NFC South, so we got Falcons, Buccaneers, Panthers, and the Drew Brees show. So this will be fun. This is an interesting division overall. We have the Super Bowl losing team here, so we might talk a little bit about the Super Bowl. We have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which I'm pretty high on. We'll see where Brandon goes with this. We have the Carolina Panthers, which I think are going to be a dumpster fire, but Brandon has other things to say, so stay tuned. And we have the New Orleans Saints, which...
We have the New Orleans Drew Breeses.
Essentially. So, I think I might have given my hand up a little bit too much on that one. So, we'll start it off with the Falcons. Going to do a deep dive. 2016 would lead you to believe they would actually have had a better record. But they were 11-5, 5-3 at home, 6-2 away. Obviously, like we said, first in the NFC South, they were the 2 seed. Ended up beating both the Packers and the blank. I forgot. In the playoffs, and then losing in one of the greatest Super Bowl comebacks. Seahawks?
Yeah, Seahawks.
Okay. Don't quote us on that.
Because you call Atlanta Seattle South, and you're
yes.
like, oh my god, they're doing it better than Seattle's doing it.
Yeah. So and then they end up losing in one of the craziest Super Bowls that we have ever seen
in our lives,
and will probably ever see.
If there was ever evidence for the NFL being scripted, that Super Bowl was it, and it's not believable because there's no fucking way Roger Goodell would put the Patriots over like that.
No script. So super interesting. Team actually, for a team that went to the Super Bowl, had quite a bit of changes to their structure going out, and it's interesting because a lot of people, analysts, ourselves as well, have them penciled in to just repeat, like, too easy. But I think there might be a couple things that end up hurting them. First and foremost is going to be Kyle Shanahan going to the dumpster fire that is the post-John Harbaugh 49ers. I think he deserved it. That offense was electric. It was crazy. He got the most out of what I think he got, and Matt Ryan basically gave him an MVP season. And I'm not a big fan of Matt Ryan being elite, kind of to pick up on the conversation that we were having last episode as far as the AFC West. I put him in that, like, Phillip Rivers category. That's like that second tier of, like, quarterbacks. He can still get you there.
Phillip Rivers is elite.
This is exactly what I was talking about. He can get you there, but I don't think he's, like, team-defining. Like, team-defining quarterbacks are like Drew Brees, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers. Like, those are team-defining quarterbacks. He's not in that list. He was basically part of the rebuild, and they had never done something until this season. They'd never gotten out of a playoff game. Like, they'd never won until now. So I have a hard time just putting Matt Ryan up on there. And I think Kyle Shanahan had a lot to do with that, specifically from a scheme standpoint. They lost their DC, which personally, they fired him after the Super Bowl because of the obvious breakdown there. But I really do think that it was
Shanahan's fault.
Partly Shanahan's fault, partly Matt Ryan's fault.
Defense wouldn't have been on the field nearly as much if that offensive game plan hadn't been so bad in the second half.
The Patriots put together this crazy comeback. They ended up turning the ball over twice in a row, scoring really quickly, and then putting Matt Ryan on his back. So, I mean, it's not to not give the Patriots their due, but they lost their DC, and I think this is more
Rick
important.
Smith got a raw deal.
I think it's more important than people are putting out, because people are all like, Dan Quinn runs the defense, like, he's the one that's picking all the players, and as a head coach, you don't have enough time to necessarily coordinate as hard as you would. So, I mean, if he takes over duties, you might see a decline. I don't know. Like I said, I call them Seattle South. I respect their defense. They're young, they're fast, they're tenacious. They play sideline to sideline.
They're big.
They're ridiculous. So that, I think, will play into their season specifically. Roddy White retired, didn't have much of an effect last season, so it's not going to be a huge loss there. They had Mohamed Sanu and
another player who's been injury prone for like the last half of his career,
Julio
unfortunately.
Jones. Ended up letting their fullback go, which, I mean, with the sets that they ended up running, the team doesn't need to have a fullback. They really don't. At least the Kyle Shanahan team didn't need to have a fullback because they ran a zone blocking scheme with a lot of stretch and like other plays. I completely fucking...
And you don't need a fullback or a quarterback if you signed Dontari Poe.
Yeah, no, that's true. And they also signed Eric Weems and Aldrick Robinson, who will be good for depth. Eric Weems is a bit of a burner, so that'll give them a little bit of a... But they already have Taylor Gabriel. Wait, no, sorry. Eric Weems and Aldrick Robinson.
You're like,
left.
man, he sure would be good on the Falcons.
Oh, yeah, he sounds familiar. Yeah, they left,
that was
so
great.
No depth as far as that goes. But I mean, I don't think it's that big of a loss because they already had Taylor Gabriel filling that role. Weems had like 26 catches last year, so it wasn't that crazy. Notable arrivals we already talked about. We already mentioned Dontari Poe. We kind of went into Dontari Poe in the AFC West portion, but I think he's going to shore up a bit of that line. Only a 1-year deal, which is interesting. Mm-hmm. Jack Crawford, they also pulled from the Cowboys.
Good pickup.
They needed to do something about their D-line because they lost Jason Babineau is still unsigned. He's rumored to be retiring, and Dwight Freeney has already retired. So a lot of their depth that wasn't Vic Beasley.
Dwight Freeney's been around forever.
Yeah, a lot of that depth that wasn't Vic Beasley suddenly just got up and left. So it was good to go out and see them get some line depth.
Made you feel better.
Personally, yes. Wide receiver Andre Roberts replaced the production of both Weems and Aldrick Robinson, as well as giving them a little bit of a different look on returns because they don't have to trot Tevin Coleman out there because he ended up getting a bit banged up at the end of last season. He ended up being very important for them. And then they replaced the OC, Kyle Shanahan, with Steve Sarkisian. Interesting pickup. Mm-hmm. And then replaced their DC with Marquand Manuel, who was a secondary coach, which I think is important. Basically because of Dan Quinn's philosophy as far as like building a Seattle defense, and it all is in that secondary.
Yeah, that hard-hitting, fast secondary.
But to talk a little bit about Sarkisian doesn't run the same kind of scheme that Shanahan does. Shanahan ran more of like a zone blocking scheme. Basically, think of the Broncos when Mike Shanahan ran them. Yeah. As far as a running game, that's exactly how it ran, and he just ran play action off of that.
More of like a
lot of deep balls is what they were doing. Here, I don't know. I mean, like Steve Sarkisian in the college game is completely different. So,
yeah, he may switch it up entirely.
It's kind of hard to translate, but he's a power running guy, so a lot of counters, a lot of powers, a lot of tosses, stuff like that. And I don't know if Devontae Freeman is necessarily suited for that. It's like having DeMarco Murray run out of the shotgun. It just doesn't work, man. It just doesn't.
Same with like an Adrian Peterson type.
Granted, they might do a lot more passing, short passes, because that's kind of his game as well. So you might see more of a West Coast influence on their season, which means that the ball might be spread more, which means that Julio might not get those touches. Just
that's like Matt Ryan can play that game, but it's not going to work out well for their most important player on offense.
No. Re-signings that they pulled back, Desmond Trufant, continuous high-level player.
Arguably current best corner in the league.
You think so?
I mean, Richard Sherman seems to be, like, he hit his peak, and I don't know if it's because... Fallen. Well, I've never liked to be a part of that whole...
Is that Jason Verrett?
Jason Verrett scares me.
Shit, we did this last time.
Desmond Trufant, Richard Sherman, Josh Norman. It sucks, but it is what it is. And Marcus...
Who's the Lions player?
Oh, Darius Slay. And you got Xavier Rhodes up in Minnesota. Well. Like, I mean... You've got so many good corners out there. Desmond Trufant.
Good corners in Kansas City as well.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like I was about to go into Kansas City, and I don't want to do that again this week.
But I think he's in that second tier. Like there's like the known players, which I said last time: Patrick Peterson, Richard Sherman, and then there's like that second tier. Necessarily doesn't mean bad. Yeah. I'm not using the second tier the same way.
It's more like a popularity contest. Like Sherman and Peterson are still at the top. Kind of like how Revis was at the top, like years after Revis Island went underwater.
Yeah, Revis Island was like repurposed.
Trufant is criminally underrated as a corner.
Yeah, no, I could believe that. They also signed their tight end Levine Toilolo, and then gave an extension to safety Kamal Ishmael. So, good signings. Dresden Trufant is the most important, to tell you the truth, because I mean that tight end set, as far as that does, it doesn't.
That secondary is an up and coming.
He's not Tony Gonzalez, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Their draft was I'd say interesting. I don't like they ended up getting or drafting the position that they needed because, like I said, they lost a lot of depth as far as their defensive line, going with Takaris McKinley out of UCLA. Interesting pickup because he had an injury, like a shoulder or a pectoral injury going into this. He's still rehabbing, as well as slight off the field issues. And depending on what they are, I'm always either inclined or misinclined to really believe that they affect it. But it's an interesting pickup for sure. I think it gave them the depth that they needed, and granted, it'll depend on how he heals, truthfully, to see how he's going to. And the Pac-12 isn't necessarily a football powerhouse.
Yeah.
So you have to question the strength of competition as well when you bring it into it, because he only had like 9.5 sacks, which is, I mean, why he went 24 versus Myles Garrett, who had like 15 and a half, 16, somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
Also strength of competition, but we'll get there.
That seems to be coming up a lot the past few years.
Duke Riley, Dan Quinn loves linebackers. He's built that team around that linebacking core. Linebacking depth is important. It seems like the Seahawks seem to just produce linebackers. It's crazy. Round 4, so they skipped round 2, went with round 3 with the linebacker. Round 4, Sean Harlow, guard out of Oregon State. Ended up losing a guard here, which I didn't list on here because it wasn't super important, but once again, depth important. DeMonte Kazee, defensive back out of San Diego State. Brian Hill in the 5th round, running back out of Wyoming. And then Eric Saubert, tight end out of Drake University.
Small school!
So yeah, I think like they went out and they drafted for need. I don't know if they necessarily drafted the best player available there as far as first round goes. Everything else is kind of iffy because once you start getting past like 2 and 3, you got to kind of find these
BPA
gems.
is just kind of like reach and grab. Like anyone could be at that point.
Well, like I said, like I don't think that they're going to regress, so to say, but I do think they will have some interesting times adapting to this offense, since it was a deep ball offense. It'll be interesting because, like I said, we don't really know much about Sarkisian as far as what he's going to be doing going forward. I just looked up a little bit as far as his running game, and their defense is arguably just as good. So it's going to be difficult to say. I have them going 12-14, or I'm sorry, 12-4. They played a lot more games in my predictions than they.
Yeah, no kidding, man.
12-4, which is actually an improvement, because despite them being quote unquote dominant, like feeling like they were beating up a lot of people, like 5 losses is still a lot for how it felt or how the story was played out. So yeah, I'm going 12-4. I mean, I feel bad because I painted this picture, but it's Tampa Bay is just not there yet, and we'll talk about it. And I don't see anything as far as like a loss. Like they would have had to have like cut Julio Jones to like really have like make me be like, what's going on in Atlanta? Despite the crowd noise piping.
Yeah, I was a little more optimistic because again, when I did my picks, it was more in a vacuum, just strictly looking at their competition.
Yeah,
and
he has
saying,
them
like,
going 26-0.
Yeah, like I looked at like just flipping a coin, basically, like kind of thing, like this team versus this team, flat out, and on a neutral field, what would happen? I didn't care about home field, away, whatever. I was just like, which team is better? Ignoring injuries, everything. That's why all my picks have been the way they are. I had them 14-2 on both of my projections. I did, even though theoretically they got worse. Theoretically, with the coaching change,
it's marginal. It's marginal.
Yeah,
it'll depend on schemes, but I mean, players. If you have good players they're able to play, like it'll fit. Like the Seahawks have managed to maintain a semblance of dominance, despite losing a DC almost every year.
Yeah.
So
and this is the theme that's going to be it'll apply more to both Tampa Bay and New Orleans for me. because, of course, like, half of your schedule is your division, essentially.
Right.
But then half of it's, like, division placement and rotations of divisions over the years. And it like, the Falcons, it actually ended up favoring them. But especially Tampa Bay and the Saints, like, schedule this year versus last year just became much more favorable for certain teams.
Yeah.
So, like, Atlanta's schedule, much more favorable this year, I feel like. So I actually had them 14-2, and I could see them being as low as 11-5 again, but 12-4 is really the floor. But 12-4, 14-2, I had them at 14-2. I wouldn't be shocked at that.
That's really good. I don't think that they're head and shoulders above the rest, like I have the Patriots being just basically there's the Patriots and there's everybody else. I feel like the NFC is way closer stacked together.
Well, and especially the NFC South it's like the NFC East. It rotates year in, year out. Nobody really repeats. It's unpredictable as hell. Partially with injuries, but also with changes. Like, you have a team like Atlanta, who, like, coordinators just fucking clean house, kind of like Denver did. Like, it can be very bad, but the difference between Atlanta and Denver is that Atlanta has a monster offense and also a monster defense, whereas, like, Denver only had a monster defense. Or offense is fairly pedestrian.
Yeah, you obviously have them being the 1 seed. There can be another team that's being the 1 seed, but I have them being the 2 seed, actually.
I have them as the 3 seed.
You have them as the 3 seed at 14-2 in the NFC?
Yeah.
You're fucking crazy.
Well, I have them the 2 in my quick gut prediction, and then they were the 3 seed in my thoughtful prediction. I had Green Bay as the 1 seed.
Oh my god, Green Bay's gonna go 16-0.
I had Seattle being the 2 seed.
So, moving on, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is probably where you start to see our paths as far as where we expect teams to go. Diverge. Last year they were 9-7, which I felt was underachieving with their talent. You'll go back and you'll see me be high on 2 teams near the end of the year because the Jaguars fell off the Gus bus. You'll see me be high on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and you'll see me be high on the Titans because I can see the makings of what could be a dominant team going forward once they kind of pass the torch on these older quarterbacks. Jameis Winston, I'm not necessarily super high on per se, but they have Mike Evans and they just added Deshaun Jackson.
Yeah.
So it's like they should perform better. Like they deserve to be in the playoffs. I think no team deserves anything, but I say based on the talent, I think they should be in the playoffs. Like that. This
is the shit that I said last year.
But they're better this year.
They are better.
Okay, so they've lost Mike Glennon, who's a giraffe.
Yeah.
He signed with the Bears because he thought he was going to get a fair shake. They lost Alteron Werner, who
had so much potential.
Yeah, just never really worked up to anything. Russell Shepard, who like 20 catches, 230 yards.
To a division rival.
Not a lot of production there. Akeem Spence, who was slightly important, and then they lost safety Bradley McDougall. And any team that gets picked up by the Seahawks kind of scares me because I'm like, what do you guys see on him?
Yeah, like this guy, like how is his physical build? Like if you're a safety or linebacker in Seattle picks you up, like all right, this motherfucker must be able to like lead a horse to water and make it drink.
Arriving, like I said, they had Deshaun Jackson just stealing from the Redskins, as well as Chris Baker, who ended up being really important. Stealing from the Cowboys, they stole safety J.J. Wilcox, and then Jets cast-offs Nick Folk and Ryan Fitzpatrick decided they want to live in Florida for the rest of their careers.
These are the reasons that Thackrey thinks they got better.
Nick Folk?
Nick Folk and Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Who would you rather have, Nick or Ryan Fitzpatrick or Mike Glennon?
Well, the thing is,
Fitzpatrick has that.
Mike Glennon has upside. Ryan Fitzpatrick is a roll of the dice every single down. Every single down is a roll of the dice.
They didn't have anybody to compliment Mike Evans last year, and that man still put up numbers.
I know.
Now they have Deshaun Jackson. You have to respect Deshaun Jackson.
I will put my asterisk is when I did my projections, I actually did forget they picked up Deshaun Jackson. However, Deshaun Jackson is also like he's okay. The joke I made originally when this happened was like, oh, Vincent Jackson retired. They need another old-ass Jackson in Tampa Bay. So they went and got Deshaun.
He can run fast. You have to respect
his speed. Run. Mike Vick can run fast, too, and he's not in the league.
He can't catch the ball.
I mean, has anybody ever passed to him?
Hot takes. Ended up re-signing Chris Conte. Jacquizz Rodgers was a big pickup for them last year. Just completely off the street. Ended up solidifying their running back position for a couple of games.
Jacquizz Rodgers was actually not bad at all.
Josh Robinson ended up re-signing. William Golston, who's
disappointing.
Okay. And then center Joe Holly, depth, like I said. But like, getting into this, man, like I'm high on the Buccaneers. I don't really it's like a feeling. Like most of it's a gut feeling, but like it's their time, man. It's their time. Going into the draft, a lot of people were high on this O.J. Howard pick.
They really were.
Tight ends historically haven't made a huge amount of impact their rookie year. The last tight end to make a Pro Bowl was Jeremy Shockey in 2002.
God,
it's been a while.
Shockey, that was so long ago.
It's been a while. Yeah, not to say that O.J. Howard's not gonna
the AFC East
come with it, but like I think he could end up being good, but like drafting tight end number 1 is like drafting Rob Gronkowski number 1 in your fantasy league. It's not a good idea.
It's not the best idea. Like you'll be glad in a way, but then after week 4 and he's injured, you'll be very sad.
Round 2, Justin Evans, safety out of Texas A&M. That Texas A&M defense got picked apart in the draft.
Yeah.
Round 3, I think underrated pick, Chris Godwin out of Penn State. He could go. Did you watch the Penn State offense last year?
Giving you the look.
He can go out and get it.
Giving you the look.
He can go up and get it.
Yeah.
Also, round 3, Kendall Beckwith, linebacker out of LSU. Jeremy McNichols, running back out of Boise State. Boise State's always crazy. You never know what you're going to get as far as
all the time.
And then
running back though,
Stevie Tukulovatu,
who sounds like he should have been drafted to your O-line.
Defensive tackle out of... No, it's not Hawaii. It's the other one. It's USC.
the next closest school that's not San Diego State.
So, like I said, I really don't have I have slight numbers to back this up, but I have a feeling. I don't have them progressing a huge amount. I have them going 10-6, and vying for a 6 seed, which is they were right around that area. They were right around that area last year. I just have them just getting over that hump, you know?
Yeah.
No. And it's not that I don't trust Jameis per se. It's just Mike Evans is a monster, man. He just throws it up and he gets it. Like it's hard. It's
so. Bear with me.
Mark my words, Tampa Bay, man. Tampa Bay.
Bear with me. So last year I was obviously very high on the Buccaneers. However, I was also very high on the Jaguars. Just throwing that out there.
Can't all be right. We can't all be right.
It's okay. So now, again, as I said earlier, I did kind of forget about the Deshaun Jackson thing, which would make a little bit of a difference in that division specifically.
Plus minus 1 win.
Well, because I had them going 0-6 in the division.
What?
Because I forgot about Deshaun Jackson.
He's not 6 wins good, though.
No. But I mean, they could have picked a win against the Saints, a win against the Panthers. Yeah, with their suspect secondaries. I neglected to think of that. So you could maybe add a win. Either way, I had them 8-8 both times. I mocked it out.
0-6 in the division, but 8-6
in the division.
That's heartbreaking.
So again, it's the schedule thing. Like their schedule was favorable out of their division, but I feel like their division as a whole got mostly better, except for the Saints. But the Saints are just. It's the Drew Brees effect. You see the matchup and you're like, yeah, anything can fucking happen. Like, if you're a woman and you go into the bathroom at the same time as Ben Roethlisberger, there's no telling what might happen. If you go against the Saints, we played, last year, we got in a shootout with the Saints. And we won just because Jack Del Rio's balls were extra inflated that day.
We being the Raiders.
Yeah, the Raiders.
Because the Saints got in a shootout, every week is what we're saying.
And that's the thing, who's going to win it? Are the Buccaneers going to win a shootout against Drew Brees? I'm still going to bet on the Saints, even though they lost Brandon Cooks, who was underutilized last year. So, and that kind of plays into it too. Brandon Cooks was a great wide receiver. We're not on that team, but the point is, 0-6 in the division. I'm high on the Panthers. The schedule is not as favorable this year for the Buccaneers, who disappointed me last year. So, 8-8. That's still respectable.
Beat the Broncos, man.
They have no offense. The Buccaneers had like an offense and a defense, kind of.
Kind of.
Kind of.
So going forward, New Orleans Saints. They've ended up finishing a paltry 7-9, good enough for third.
Where
the NFC
they've
South.
been for years, by the way.
God damn.
Since 2011, they've basically been 7-9.
Home 4-4, away 3-5. Just a little bit less than average. Like I said, good enough for third in the NFC South. You mentioned Brandon Cooks, obviously big trade to the Patriots. We touched on that a little bit in the AFC East episode. But this did allow them to pick up 2 first-rounders, which is important for them because they're in a perpetual rebuild, it seems. Running back Tim Hightower ended up leaving and signing with the 49ers because I guess he doesn't like winning as much.
Right.
Guard Jari Evans, who good, serviceable, signed with the Packers. Like the only offseason thing that the Packers did because they just don't believe in free agency.
They don't do free agency. I would point out that offensive line in New Orleans, not a great O-line. So Jari Evans, not a huge loss.
Cornerback B.W. Webb signed with the Bears. So, I mean, Saints aren't known for their defense.
Exactly.
So.
Their defense is never their strength.
Lost linebacker Kasim Adebawale also signed with the Bears. So a lot of defense leaving, and a little bit of guard, a little bit of line. Leaving.
Basically, the Saints lost their Tuesday night girl.
Notable arrivals: quarterback Chase Daniel coming home.
Yeah,
from the Eagles, where he got paid to throw 1 pass.
I think he was with the Chiefs for a year too, wasn't he?
Couple, yeah. Linebacker Manti Te'o.
And just in case you're wondering if the Saints defense is invisible.
Oh God. I
made that joke last week.
Yeah. I think I'm a little bit more, I guess, hopeful. Is that the right word for Manti Te'o? I mean,
that's the only word that man's got.
On the Saints, it's kind of.
At least he'll get a lot of good catfish in New Orleans.
Oh God. Okay. Running back Adrian Peterson, to me, the most confusing free agency signing of the.
He needed to go somewhere with a really good line, and that's not where he ended up.
Running back Adrian Peterson is not known for his pass catching skills.
Yeah.
If you haven't figured this out in Minnesota,
like that's not the place he needs to be.
If you haven't figured it out as well, Drew Brees likes to drop back and pass the ball a lot,
which is not going to happen with Adrian. Like Adrian Peterson's not going to be catching passes in the flat in New Orleans.
It's a complete difference in ideology as far as two-star players who are also getting up there in years. So it's not like you're like signing Adrian Peterson for the future. You're signing him for now.
I can't I've looked at this so many times this offseason. I've looked at it
for a multiple of 2 angles at least.
I don't understand what the fuck. Why did Adrian Peterson sign with the Saints? I watch Ballers on HBO, and the player Ricky was getting recruited by the Saints. That made more sense in the real world. That wide receiver signing with them made more sense than Adrian Peterson. Am I Skip Bayless right now? What's happening?
I don't know. I'd take pot-smoking Ricky Williams over Adrian Peterson. He's been out of the league for 4+ years.
Adrian Peterson went to one of the wrongest teams. The Jaguars would have made more sense.
Because at least he would have gotten paid.
He would have gotten paid, and there's so much talent there that he may have been able to help them Forrest Gump their way into the playoffs. But in New Orleans, you have Drew Brees carrying that offense, and you have nothing going on defense. Adrian Peterson is one of those players that elevates your system. This is not a system he will thrive in.
Look at it like this. Like the same way that I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to get better. I was like, they got better in ways that they can attack their division. Specifically, the Panthers and the Saints. Deshaun Jackson, you're going to have to respect him as far as the Falcons go, but I do think that like they are going to struggle against the Falcons. Like it's just how it is.
That secondary of the Falcons is real.
But in what world does Adrian Peterson allow you to get better against Carolina, whose front seven
is good.
Atlanta, whose front seven is good. And then, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who have a very serviceable front seven.
The right word for them. Serviceable front seven.
It just doesn't make sense. Among the other things, like, Adrian Peterson doesn't help you get better than 7 and 9. He doesn't.
Unless you're able to carry a switch out onto the field with you, he's not going to do much to that division's front seven.
You can't pump HGH into his veins.
No.
He's not gonna
there's just we could make all the jokes in the world, but Adrian Peterson signing with the Saints is one of the most confusing offseason moves. Hands down.
Ended up replacing Jari Evans with Larry Wolford. Wide receiver Ted Ginn, who continues to find jobs. I
guess they were like, all right, so
he's good for
Drew Brees can put the ball anywhere. So it's a causality thing. Like, you throw the ball to Ted Ginn, his hands are going to be here, and the ball's going to end up here. So Drew Brees is just going to go ahead and put the ball where Ted Ginn's hands would otherwise be. And when Ted Ginn accidentally puts his hands there, the ball will be there. And Ted Ginn will get what is known as a completion. He'll have to learn that word, but it'll be a completion. Either that, or they're just going to stick his ass on special teams.
He's good for 2 80-yard touchdowns a year, it seems.
Yeah.
And Drew Brees only makes wide receivers better.
Yeah. So but he can't make his hands better. And Ted Ginn has no fucking hands. He's fast. Ted Ginn is like, if Al Davis were alive now, Ted Ginn would have signed with us, and Cordero Patterson would have signed with us, and we would run like a 5-wide set with like Cooper, Crabtree. We'd still have Seth Roberts, Cordero Patterson, and Ted Ginn. We wouldn't even have a tight end. Like, Ted Ginn, he has all the potential. Like, it's a boom or bust thing with the Saints. Like, they lost Brandon Cooks. Who was the closest thing to a Brandon Cooks out in free agency? Like,
not Ted Ginn. You confused me with that. It's not
like physical skills, not reliability or talent. Cordero Patterson was out there too, but that's more of like a burner. Like, Brandon Cooks actually has hands, but if you take hands away from Brandon Cooks, you get a Ted Ginn maybe.
I go Deshaun Jackson.
Okay, Deshaun Jackson has old in common with Ted Ginn. But then, like, Brandon Cooks is young, he's fast, he's talented, like, he's got all these things about him, like, he's like...
Brandon Cooks ain't going over the middle. Deshaun Jackson sure as shit ain't going over the middle.
Like...
Ted Ginn sure as shit ain't going over the middle.
Brandon Cooks is the ghost of what Ted Ginn could have been.
Kenny Britt.
Kenny Britt. I forgot about Kenny Britt. Where did he go?
I was shopping for wide receivers, Cleveland.
Oh, that's right.
I was shopping for wide receivers, so you better believe I knew about that.
I'll take players who went to get paid for $600, Alex.
Linebacker A.J. Klein and defensive end Alex Okafor. Other arrivals. I don't have anything to say.
We already commented on Alex Okafor.
Did we?
I think.
You didn't.
I thought I did.
Good.
All right, serviceable.
Re-signings Nick Fairley. Every time I see Nick Fairley's name or Ndamukong Suh's name elsewhere other than the Lions, I always get really sad because like they were always touted as like they're going to be crazy. They're going to be like the like the base of like the purple people eaters. They're going to be like the and then like Ndamukong Suh decided he wants to kick people in the balls, and Nick Fairley was just like, I'm not a part of this.
Ndamukong Suh owns a restaurant on Ballers. Just going to keep bringing up Ballers now.
But Nick Fairley ended up going with the Saints, which originally was a really, really confusing transaction for me. And then they ended up re-signing defensive end Darryl Tapp.
Because their front seven was working for them, right?
Something was working.
Apparently.
NFL draft, they went and got arguably the best healthy cornerback available.
Breaking news!
Marshawn Lattimore out of Ohio State.
Who is no longer healthy.
He's Lattimore. I mean,
if your name is Lattimore, you're going to have leg problems, it turns out. This is breaking news as of our recording today. Lattimore was hurt in training camp.
I don't think it'll be an issue.
We don't know how bad it is just yet, since it's still fairly fresh. But he was helped off of the field, and it was not above the waist injury.
If you followed our podcast last season, a little bit about the Saints is how we talked about how many points they were giving up. They gave up among the most points in the league. They were up there with the Raiders.
We combined for over 70 points.
Yeah, they were up there with the Raiders
almost
and
80.
like the Redskins as far as like teams giving up just big fuck amount of points.
Teams that are slinging it out of desperation.
Yeah. So they went out and got a cornerback, hopefully able to just survive out there on the island that he's going to live on.
Like running through the swamp.
So that was their number 11. That was the one that they got for being 7-9. The other first round pick they ended up being 32 because the Patriots won the Super Bowl. Tackle out of Wisconsin, Ryan Ramczyk, I want to say. It's Polish, kind of. It looks like a Polish name in Wisconsin.
Can we just point out real quick that the Patriots basically traded a second-round pick to get Brandon Cooks?
Yeah. No, I mean, that's...
You think of it like that, it's a way different deal.
You know, Beanie Wells went in that same range. That's all I'm saying.
That hurts.
But Wisconsin is a ground and pound team, so linemen out of there, not necessarily a bad idea, especially tackles.
Yeah.
Marcus Williams, safety, like I said, gave up a lot of points. The way to stop giving up points is to not let the ball go above your head.
And not let Rob Ryan on your defense as I learned in the past.
Sexy hair. Round 3, Alvin Kamara, running back out of Tennessee. It's not like they needed more running backs.
It's kind of a head-scratcher pick, actually.
Alex Anzalone, linebacker out of Florida. These are all round 3 picks, guys. Round 3, Trey Hendrickson, defensive end out of Florida Atlantic. They actually got a lot of value here. If they end up hitting on a couple of these picks, their defense could be significantly better.
Their front seven is about to have so much depth.
It's going to, they could hit on a couple of these and be fantastic as far as, a front 7 goes. And I mean,
yeah.
If I know anything about, anything about this, keep the front 7 healthy, have them go after the quarterback, and then just pray.
It's like you don't have a secondary, you damn sure better have a front 7.
So, if they hit on any number of these, I think that they're going to be significantly better going forward. The question is Drew Brees going to live that out? Round 6, lone round 6 pick, Al-Qadin Muhammad, defensive end out of Miami.
Maybe. We'll see. That's one of those depth picks right there for sure. You got a linebacker and a DE both in the third round that's probably one of them surely will pan out.
This will be very quick based on what I'm going to say about them. They had a top 3 defense. They won the Super Bowl.
The Saints?
Yes. They had a top 3 defense.
Yeah.
They took the ball away. They won the Super Bowl. Drew Brees is elite.
They were also playing against a historic choke artist.
They won the Super Bowl.
Another team had a top 3 defense that played against that same choke artist and kicked the shit out of him in the Super Bowl.
They also won Super Bowl. It's real easy.
Have a good defense, you win a championship.
No. Have a good defense and have Drew Brees.
Oh. The Patriots had a good defense and had Drew Brees last year too.
Put the necessary pieces around.
I'm actually curious now. When's the last time a team had a rock star offense with a mediocre or bad defense and won the Super Bowl?
Tell you what, it's not the 90 Bills.
Wide right.
But yeah, put the necessary pieces on your defense around Drew Brees. You should have been doing this the whole time. You let that defense just go to waste. Essentially, you only got one Super Bowl out of that. That's a shame.
I think the key takeaway from this
he's going to put up numbers like Drew Brees has done this with no name wide receivers for as long as he's done this. He makes wide receivers get paid.
My key takeaway from this offseason for the Saints is there's no knockout O-line really in the NFC South.
No, they're
all mediocre at best.
I mean, they have the Falcons have Alex Mack.
Yeah, I mean they have
the best offense.
They've got an all right offense. So it's not top 10.
Yeah.
So you really build that front 7. As long as you can get after the quarterback, they can't give the ball to people. It's tried and true.
That's what you think. Did you watch that Monday night game with the Eagles and the Packers? Aaron Rodgers was slinging it on them slants. 2-yard slants.
Aaron Rodgers also has one of the fastest releases in the league, too.
He is the table.
He 2 seconds is all Aaron Rodgers needs. We know that. Aaron Rodgers is...
You got to have somebody back there to guard him.
Your point of reference here was all right, who's one of the 2 quarterbacks in the league better than Drew Brees? That's the guy I'm going to use for my example. That's kind of a dick move. Don't disrespect Drew Brees like that. Yeah, Aaron Rodgers is good. We know it. But
Jameis Winston and...
Jameis Winston's not...
I was going to say something good about Cam, but then I thought against it.
Just disrespectful. Anyways,
is Cam throwing 2-yard slants? Is Cam? I don't think so.
Cam falls forward and gets 2 yards. He's a large man.
And for all I know, the Falcons are going to be running slant routes out the ass.
Now, if you combine all of these offseason moves and the schedule, I actually had the Saints coming out 10-6.
What?
10-6. I said it.
Brandon's bad at football.
Whatever.
I have them going 6-10.
What?
That's not far off from where they finished, and they didn't get better. Arguably, they got worse. They're going to try and feed the ball to Adrian Peterson, and it's not going to go well. They're going to deviate from where they've been this whole time with Drew Brees, and they're going to be worse. They lost Brandon Cooks. How can they not be worse?
I had them 2-4 in the division and still 10-6. That schedule outside of the division, I felt favored them.
1-5 in the division. 1-5. They're going to be picking in the top 10.
So you really think that their out of division games don't favor them? See, I was feeling really good about the Saints when I looked at their competition.
The Saints don't jump out at me, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, well,
any given Sunday, Drew Brees is the best top 3 quarterback in the league, but
I think the Saints, oddly enough, might be the team out of all the teams in the league that we differ on. That this one would be the one we're gonna wait till the end of the year. One of us is gonna be told you so.
Stay tuned.
Or they're gonna finish at 9-7, 8-8, and we're gonna be all right, fucking whatever. Also believable.
Our dick's met in the middle. You're saying this like we're not going to disagree on the Carolina Panthers. Panthers ended up 6-10. Far cry from their 15-1 record last year.
This one's gonna be fun. This is gonna be
4-4 at home, away 2-6. Good enough for obviously 4th in the NFC South. Do you want to take this? Because I don't have anything good to say about the Panthers.
Well, this is okay. So. This is
I went on a rant earlier before we recorded about the Panthers.
Yeah, you did. So the Panthers 6-10 last year, good for 4th in their division. Obviously, didn't make the playoffs.
Flash in the pan. Flash in the pan.
Not a flash in the pan.
Flash in the pan.
Not a flash in the pan. I would like to go ahead and point out right off the top that they have one of the best defensive players in the league, and he literally came close to death on the field according to how he responded to that concussion. Kuechly was out for a good chunk of the year.
Josh Norman's not on that team anymore.
Do you want to open that can of worms? We're going to talk about a free agent from 2 years ago, who everyone was like, "Oh, Josh Norman's overrated," and then the Carolina Panthers defense got objectively worse, and we were like,
Still think Josh Norman's overrated.
I don't know if he's necessarily overrated. I think Josh Norman is a very good player, but it's one of those things Nnamdi Asomugha was one of the best bump and run corners in the NFL when he was with the Raiders, and then he went to the Eagles and just disappeared.
Stats time. Alshon Jeffrey in the 2 games that he has played Josh Norman, both in 2014 when he was on the Panthers and last year when he was on the Redskins. 5 catches, 74 yards, and a touchdown against him in Carolina. And
Carolina's not like a home field advantage place.
74 yards, 4 yards, 4 touchdowns. Jesus Christ, 4 receptions, and that's with last year's Bears.
Sure, but you can do the same thing with Richard Sherman and Larry Fitzgerald.
No, that's consistent. That's consistency saying that this wide receiver who is better than this cornerback made him look bad twice. ODB has his number. Des Bryant has made him look kind of stupid.
Fitzgerald has made Sherman look less than he is too. It's one of those things. You take a transcendent player and put him against another really good player. That's the thing. Alshon's we're looking at one of those guys that may be one of those guys.
Josh Norman is in that 3rd category as far as
cornerbacks.
Third?
I
said it.
There are many, many people that put Josh Norman in the upper echelon of corners, and you're putting him in the 3rd.
Mm-hmm.
You're putting him... I just want to be clear. You're putting him as he's a Blake Bortles of cornerbacks, is what you're saying. The Redskins went out and stole Blake Bortles from the Panthers on defense.
Continue.
All right. So, notable departures for the Panthers. The old man, Mike Tolbert.
Oh, man, he's so good.
One of the best fullbacks of the past decade.
He can be a running back if he wanted to.
He really... Well, I mean, he's basically been a running back for them. Like, they've had this two-headed monster at running back for years with Jon Stewart and Mike Tolbert. Not Jon Stewart from, The Daily Show.
Jonathan Stewart.
Jonathan Stewart.
Previously of the D'Angelo Williams Show.
Yeah. I mean, D'Angelo Williams, who left and continued being good. Anyways, they lost Mike Tolbert to the Bills because the Bills are out there trying to be a team still. They lost defensive coordinator Sean McDermott, who also went to the Bills as head coach. They lost Ted Ginn Jr. I use the word loss humorously. He went to go drop balls with the Saints, as we discussed. Linebacker A.J. Klein, who went to the Saints. There is a pattern here I'm noticing.
Send me your weak. Send me your weary.
You're poor. You're hungry. Send them all to New Orleans.
Send them away from New Orleans for a while, then they'll come back.
Cornerback Trey Boston, who went to the Chargers, which
loss. Huge loss.
Huge loss there. The secondary, but again, when you're
starting corners,
when your front seven is a strength, it's one of those things like your secondary can be weak. And if you, especially, I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm just saying that hopefully, if you address it, then
hopefully, if you address it or something.
But there is a notable arrival that is important for that.
Okay.
Notable arrivals tackle Matt Khalil, no slouch, helped that offensive line keep Cam upright.
It won't happen.
It might happen.
The league hates Cam Newton.
Everyone hates Cam Newton except me.
I don't hate Cam Newton.
I think you do.
I don't.
You might be racist.
Might be a homophobe.
Is Cam Newton gay now?
Continuing.
Michael Sam is a quarterback of the Carolina Panthers. Anyways, cornerback Captain Munderland has come home. I really wanted the Raiders to pick him up in free agency. I thought we might.
He's got an awesome name.
He would have been perfect with the Raiders. Captain Munderland. We lost the Dread Pirate Roberts. Obviously, we needed to go out and get Captain Munderland.
To get a captain to steer that ship.
Yeah, and we didn't do it. He went back to the Panthers. Captain Munderland was a long-time Panther who left for money. He went to the Vikings for a little bit. Mm-hmm. Now he's back with the Panthers. He is like a B-tier cornerback.
How about Josh Norman?
Yeah, that's the point I'm making here. Is you're calling Josh Norman like a C tier corner?
No, I would put
Captain Munderland is definitely a B tier corner.
I would put Captain Munderland in the C tier.
I think he's still got it. I think he can be a B tier. He's coming back. That should hopefully fill the gap where Trey Boston. I mean, Munderland's obviously older. He's got more wear, but Munderland's consistent. He's decent. And he's familiar with, Carolina. Granted, things have obviously changed since then. But
he knows his way around the city.
He knows his way around the city, and somehow that plays into it.
Doesn't
does.
Play into anything.
It for some reason, it
might be a comfortability factor.
Yeah, I think it's a comfort factor. I don't know what it is, but that's definitely there's a mojo factor with that. And if there's a city that believes in mojo outside of New Orleans, it's definitely Charlotte. So, and they also got Russell Shepard, from Tampa Bay. Another this division is doing a lot of cannibalizing, similar to how the AFC West did, as we noted last week. They get
the most scouting on those players, so it makes sense to try and pick the players.
It really does. That's not a good system fit for you, but it's a good system fit for me. Like, obviously, if that's a free agent, we're going to take it.
It makes the most sense for this kind of stuff to happen.
Yeah. Defensive coordinator Steve Wilkes. He was our defensive backs coach. Interesting that he got a promotion after how their season went last year in their secondary. I think they're giving a lot of credit to talent over coaching as their problem.
Ron, man, throwing them dice, gambling, man, Riverboat Ron.
Yeah, I mean, Riverboat Ron doesn't fuck around. And another interesting, notable arrival, I think, defensive end Julius Peppers.
Who's like 37 now.
There's
He's like 37, 38. He's...
Homecomings, bro. homecoming
He
spot.
wasn't bad with the Packers.
No, this is again, NFC North just borrowed players from Carolina. Now they're coming home. This is why I'm feeling good about the Panthers, because Julius Peppers still has it as a defensive end. And again, this isn't a division with strong offensive line play. Julius Peppers can still look like one of the better DEs in the league at his age, just because their offensive lines aren't that impressive down there.
6 sacks.
6 is not...
Max.
He's 1,000 years old. 6 sacks at 1,000 is pretty good. And also safety Mike Adams, because their secondary needed help. They re-signed running back Fozzie Whitaker, who I
Good
guess
in spot duty for Jonathan Stewart.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that they're in this weird transitionary phase. For a lot of people that aren't familiar with the Panthers, they invested like 300% of their cap for 5 years to Jonathan Stewart and Mike Tolbert and D'Angelo Williams. They had a lot of money invested at running back. They got rid of D'Angelo Williams. Now Mike Tolbert is gone. So Fozzie Whitaker's going to kind of fill in this transitionary era while Jonathan Stewart is still there, obviously, who was also re-signed. They re-signed defensive end Mario Addison and defensive end Quan Short. Quan Short is a badass. He is.
No, I mean, he's good.
Him and Luke Kuechly hold it down, and Mario Addison there for rotation. They have a very rotational defensive line. Luke Kuechly dying last year really hurt that. They weren't able to get after the quarterback as much.
I think it'll change.
Kuechly was actually considered he had one of those moments. Not the time for a brain fart. Safety. Seahawks.
Earl Thomas.
Earl Thomas, thank you. He had an Earl Thomas moment where he was like, maybe I need to retire after this injury. He freaked the fuck out because concussions fuck people up really bad like that. Kuechly was genuinely like, I might retire. He's not going to retire, obviously.
His position is predicated on slamming his head as fast as he can into other people.
Yeah.
More than mostly anybody else.
Defensive ends and safeties, ram their heads into people. These two people had the same consideration for very good reasons. Kuechly decided he's going to stick around. He is a top 5 DE in the league.
Luke Kuechly's a linebacker.
Or linebacker. Sorry. It sucks because a lot of teams do hybrid OLB DE things.
He's a middle linebacker. Don't do that.
No, he plays on the outside sometimes too. He does. Look, defenses are doing a lot of crazy shit nowadays.
Not with Luke Kuechly.
Kuechly's all over the place. There are some people that play tackle and linebacker at the same time. This is the league we're in nowadays. They rotate people in weird places.
I'm not in anything.
What do you all do on your front seven?
It's a mystery.
Yeah. Anyways,
NFL draft. So they ended up picking Christian McCaffrey because they felt a little weak at running back.
That joke never really set for me until just this moment that I'm thinking about it. After going on this very long rant about the running backs over the years. And McCaffrey apparently is showing up in training camp.
Training camp hype, guys. Training camp hype.
I know training camp hype, but everyone's looking at McCaffrey. I'm not a McCaffrey guy. I made that clear.
I think he could have been good on the Eagles.
Because he's
but
white?
We didn't need... Okay. But we didn't need a running back, and he was going to go before pick 14. So, he's good. I question whether or not he's big enough to be an actual running back in the league and he's not polished enough to be a slot receiver, so he's kind of like a tweener. He's one of the first tweeners that you've really seen, because you've got a lot of running backs who are good at catching out of the backfield, but Christian McCaffrey is arguably better at catching out of the backfield. Or catching in the slot.
You know how I feel white running backs? There's always the one or two the Danny Woodheads and shit out there, but McCaffrey I'm soft on McCaffrey.
I like a wide or 3-point shooters in the NBA.
Yeah. And number 8 overall, I was I don't know, man.
I'd rather him over Leonard Fournette.
Because of injuries?
Partly because of the Jaguars.
Or because of LSU?
Partly because of the Jaguars. Just being the Jaguars, but partly because I think Christian McCaffrey can have more impact and have a longer career.
I mean,
it all depends on whether or not he flourishes in a pass catching scenario, because I don't think he's a between the tackles guy consistently.
Here's a question, because we actually do have time. I do want to ask you, where is he on the depth?
2.
Think he's 2 behind John Stewart?
Yeah. Change up third down back.
All right.
Jonathan Stewart's not catching anything on the backfield, and Fozzie Whitaker isn't. Sure shit, he's not.
You think they'll do a dual back set with that?
They might. They were doing it with D'Angelo and Jonathan Stewart when Cam first got there, and D'Angelo Williams is a bit bigger, less rounded or less complete receiver than McCaffrey is. So I mean,
right.
you could see it. They could run a lot of they essentially run it anyway, but like draws and sneaks and shit like that with him, because he's a legitimate threat to just like pop. 5 yards down the field and take it for 15. So we'll see. I mean, like I said, he's just. I hate saying the word small, because small really doesn't matter when it really comes down to it.
It really doesn't, because again, the Danny Woodhead thing.
But like, it made me squeamish, and the Pac-10 isn't known for its necessarily competitive play past like the first 3 slots in the Pac-12. So. Take it with a grain of salt. McCaffrey was one of the ones who like jumped up the draft boards
super quick,
because he was like looking at like 20s when they were first boarding it, and then they were like he just kept jumping. Ended up being 8, which may be a reach. I don't know. With the issues with the holes that they had, I don't know if you can pass on McCaffrey, but at the same time, it's like you got other areas.
BPA, man.
I guess.
Like, nobody was trading for it, so what do you do?
Round 2, Curtis Samuel, wide receiver out of Ohio State. Cam needs wide receivers. That's just the long and short of it. Taylor Moton, offensive tackle out of Western Michigan. Their offensive line has actually gotten worse since they were 15-1, which is surprising. Round 3, Deshaun Hall, defensive end, Texas A&M. Like I said, I talk about the Texas A&M defense getting just cannibalized because, like, people respect the SEC. They really do. Round 5, Corn Elder. I like that name. Defensive back out of Miami.
You had Children of the Corn. Now you have Corn Elder.
Alex Arma, fullback out of West Virginia. And then Harrison Butker, place kicker. I like these last 2 picks because they were just like, fuck it, we're gonna do whatever we want.
What's on the board? Fuck it, just like it's like a fantasy draft. Like they just auto picked these 2 players. This is what they needed was a fullback and a kicker.
So the Panthers. You've heard Brandon heap a lot of praise onto the Panthers, but 2 reasons, or multiple reasons why the Panthers don't. 1, they don't get back to 15-1. 2, they don't even win the division. 3, they're not even the second best team in the division. They missed the playoffs easily. Cam Newton's lost a lot of weight coming off a shoulder injury. He's lost about 15, 16 pounds. He's now down to 246. There's a lot of wear on him. You saw it happen at the end of at the beginning of last year. They played a long season. He didn't get a lot of rest. Injuries started breaking him down. The league will not protect Cam Newton. We figured this out. They will not protect Cam Newton.
This is a fact.
If Cam continues to play the way he is, he's not going to draw these flags. And he will continue to play the way he plays because he said it in an interview in training camp. He's like, do you expect, like Tom Brady or one of these pocket passers to, like, not be in the pocket? He's like, this is just my game.
Yeah, Cam Andrew Luck.
Cam Newton's being smaller and then, running the same, like, downhill, rough nose offense it's just not going to work. They lost Sean McDermott, who was a disciple of Jim Johnson. You don't know who Jim Johnson is? Fuck you. And he, I believe, is most of the reason why the Carolina Panthers defense ended up being crazy. Because you were saying, like, they're going to do a lot of rotation on their defensive line. They're going to do a lot of blitzing and stuff like that. It's going to change from a scheme standpoint because Sean McDermott is one of the last bastions of, like, this weird zone blitz scheme that, like, Dick LeBeau and, like, Jim Johnson like to run. So you're going to see a scheme change as well as their cornerback depth basically being nothing. In a passing league in which you don't have Cam Newton to bring you back when it's predicated on both the long ball, which puts Cam in the pocket for 5 to 7 drops, about 5 seconds, you're going to have these transcendent players like Khalil Mack, these transcendent players like Von Miller just crush him you know. So he's gonna die on the field, and he's not gonna get the flag. So you're gonna see your franchise player just get crushed over and over and over.
It's a good thing the schedule favors them this year.
You better hope that he learns how to throw it short. And he's historically not been a short ball thrower. Like short to intermediate range, he's very inaccurate. He's a great long ball thrower, but you need to have the time to throw those long balls.
True, but he doesn't have a lot of high-end front sevens to play this year. Something that I took into consideration with this.
No. Cam peaked. Period.
I mean,
Cam peaked. Carolina Panthers peaked. They have missed their window.
That's rude.
It's fact.
One thing I want to point. You didn't give the record.
7-9. You would think I would make them go like 3-13 with that, like just complete shelling.
Yeah, but you were just like they're basically like an ACC team. That's what you said.
There's a huge disparity between what I think the Buccaneers will do and what the Falcons will do, and what the Panthers and the Saints will do.
All right. I see you.
Okay.
I had them going 12-4.
Jesus Christ.
Reasons being...
not as different as the Falcons going 26-0.
Again, schedule. A lot of the teams that they play this year, just the matchups didn't seem to really be that problematic for the Panthers. I think their front seven's going to bounce back quite well. They're not playing any transcendent O-lines. And again, they're not playing any transcendent D-lines. Like, nothing on the line seems to be super unfavorable for them. Cam's smaller this year, but you got to remember, 240 pounds is still a big fucking man.
Yeah, but when you're used to throwing around 15, 20 extra pounds, it makes a difference.
It's true, but it's also going to make him quicker. And one of Cam's strengths is his running ability. So if it makes him even a little bit more evasive, it means he might not be taking those hits that get him hurt. Something that I also gave consideration to. When you have a backfield of like 43 running backs, that may actually be a factor for him. Cam Newton is no slouch. The only defense in that division that's truly a problem, I think, for them is going to be the Falcons this year. And that being said, I had them going 2-4 in the division because I think I had like everyone going 2-4 in the division or some shit.
That's not possible.
I know it's not. The Falcons were 6-0 in the division because I respect them. But the only reason I had them going 4-2 in the division, because I didn't feel good about the Buccaneers. I think the Panthers will bounce back. It's interesting because you don't respect Josh Norman, but they got objectively worse last year, and one of the only major differences outside of Luke Kuechly's injury was Josh Norman leaving. So
Cam Newton regressing. Cam Newton regressed a whole ton, and he had actually more to work with. Kelvin Benjamin was on the field. Who did he have throwing to in the 15-1 season? Ted Ginn?
Did we just underrate Ted Ginn? Is that what happened? I think it's just one of those. Like, I hate saying it, the Super Bowl slump thing, but the hangover from the Super Bowl. Like, I think that is part of it. Cam Newton is one of those players historically who takes things personally and gets into a funk. Like, that's been one of the biggest narratives about him as a player, is he gets his feelings hurt and it affects his play.
He did admit to that.
Yeah.
In one of the interviews during during training camp.
He doesn't have that. Like, he came off of a 6-10 year. He's going to be like, all right, I have to prove myself again. He'll get into a truck accident. They'll put him in the hyperbolic time chamber, and then he will be better.
He'll be Super Saiyan 3.
He'll be Super Saiyan.
His goatee's already working on it, man.
In all seriousness, I think Cam dropping weight is on purpose. I think it's to improve his
I think it's because he had shoulder surgery and he couldn't work out.
I mean, he's still got his left arm. I mean, a lot of... I mean... It's prognostication. It's a whole bunch of what if and flipping coins. I think that the defense is going to be objectively better this year than it was last year, and I think that's going to make a big difference. It'll be enough to shut down the Bucs for them. I think that they'll probably also sweep the Saints. And
Doug Martin's back. He's off the weed. he's ready to
he's
tear it up.
He's not Le'Veon Bell. Don't give me that shit. I think that
the player of the year, Le'Veon Bell, holding out of training camp.
I'm actually pretty sure I had them sweeping the Bucs and the Saints and getting swept by the Falcons.
Obviously.
Which is what got them to, like, the record they have is going 4-2 in the division.
They do, because by virtue of them being 4 in their division, they do play a lot of weak teams.
Yeah. And then...
But they also play the Eagles, the Patriots, the Steelers, and then their division multiple times.
Yeah. I wasn't worried about the Eagles with them.
You fucking quack. Like, jeez. I don't even have, like, an insult. Like, own the Panthers. Fuck.
I just, like, it's one of those things. I went through the schedule and I looked, all right, all things considered, no injuries and just matchups, and that's what I came up with. I mean, it's not a respect thing. The Panthers will bounce back.
Front 7. Don't underrate Fletcher Cox.
You're talking about the Eagles. You're not even on the Panthers anymore. You're like, look, don't disrespect the Eagles. Don't disrespect the front 7 of the Panthers.
We have names we can combine that are Long Cox and Long Johnson. Don't fuck with us.
Oh my god, that's great.
And
look,
they're on. No, they're on the line. Lane Johnson's on the O line.
You just
I've segued.
you said all that needs to be said. Front 7. The Panthers have the best front 7 in that division. They're going to get after those quarterbacks. The Falcons, who are the cream of that division, have a new offensive system they're going to have to play with, and their offensive line is not a top 10 offensive line. That Panthers front 7 is going to get after all 3 of those quarterbacks. The Panthers are going to pick up wins on the strength of their front 7. Their front 7 was weakened severely last year. They lost the captain of their fucking defense last year.
No, they just got him back. Captain Letterland.
Well played. Anyways, I think the Panthers are going to shine this year, in spite of my crazy predictions of them flipping people around on their defense. I don't care. I think it'll happen.
The only way to know is for them to play the games.
That would be a novel concept.
If they actually, don't.
We only have, 40 days until that now?
I don't know.
We're off the rails. If you made it this far, guys, both of us did not have great days today. We are not on our game.
Also, thank you.
And thank you. Yeah, if you're still listening, thank you. Shout out to Justin and John Schartzer, good friends of mine who are doing an ESPN radio show weekly now. Hopefully we can get at least Justin on. He's talked about getting on here. If John wanted to come too, I'll parlay with the 49ers fan. I don't care. But good luck to them with their new ESPN radio show. I look forward to listening to it, and I hope you guys do great. And again, thank you all for listening to us. We really appreciate it. And have a good one.
Yep.